Lady Serafina Veltaris had built an empire across 3-star systems through careful calculation, strategic marriages, and an iron will that bent circumstance to her favor. She controlled mining operations on 7 planets, held board positions in 4 major galactic corporations, and maintained a social network that included ambassadors, senators, and 2 planetary governors. Nothing surprised her anymore, until she walked into her daughter's apartment unannounced and saw the impossible. Lyra stood in the kitchen, silhouetted by the afternoon light filtering through the floor-to-ceiling windows of her modest downtown residence. She wore a loose tunic that did nothing to hide the unmistakable curve of her belly. A belly that shouldn't exist, couldn't exist, according to every medical scan and genetic analysis performed over the past decade. The crystal decanter Serafina had been carrying, a priceless heirloom meant as a peace offering after their latest argument, slipped from her fingers and shattered against the marble floor. Lyra spun around, her violet eyes widening with shock that quickly transformed into something else. Resignation, perhaps, or defiance. "Mother," she said quietly, "I wasn't expecting you." Serafina couldn't speak. Her mind raced through impossibilities, each one more troubling than the last. Medical fraud, genetic manipulation, illegal procedures, surrogacy schemes. The social implications alone could destroy everything she'd built. The Veltaris name meant purity, meant adherence to tradition, meant, "You're pregnant," Serafina finally managed, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yes." Lyra's hand moved protectively to her stomach, a gesture so instinctive and maternal that it made Serafina's chest tight. "That's impossible. The doctors said." "I know what they said." Lyra moved to the living area, settling carefully onto the couch with practiced ease. She was at least 5 months along, Serafina realized with growing horror. 5 months of hiding this, of lying by omission, of how? Serafina demanded, her composure cracking. "Who did this? What procedures did you undergo? Do you have any idea what this means for the family, for the business, for your inheritance rights under Zelathi law?" Lyra's expression hardened. "Is that really your first concern? Not whether I'm healthy or happy, or don't you dare deflect." Serafina's voice rose, echoing off the expensive artwork that lined Lyra's walls, artwork Serafina had purchased, in an apartment Serafina's money had secured. "You were declared medically infertile at 17. 3 different specialists confirmed genetic markers that made natural conception impossible for you. I spent a fortune on consultations, on treatments, on trying to fix your broken daughter so she could fulfill her dynastic obligations," Lyra finished coldly. The words hung between them like a blade. Serafina felt her carefully constructed control slipping. She moved to the window, staring out at the sprawling cityscape of Veltara Prime, the capital world her ancestors had helped colonize 4 generations ago. Everything she'd built, everything she'd sacrificed, had been for family legacy, for the Veltaris name to continue to thrive, to matter in a universe that ground up the unprepared and forgotten. "Tell me what happened," she said, forcing calm into her voice. "All of it, now." Lyra was silent for a long moment, and when she finally spoke, her voice carried a tremor that Serafina hadn't heard since her daughter was a child. "His name is David, David Chen. He's human." The world tilted. Human. Not just any transgression of medical impossibility, but a cross-species relationship. With a human. The implications cascaded through Serafina's mind like dominoes falling. Social scandal, genetic complications, legal nightmares regarding citizenship and inheritance, the whispers that would follow Lyra and any child she bore for the rest of their lives. "A human," Serafina repeated, each word carefully measured. "You're telling me that you, diagnosed as genetically incapable of conception, somehow became pregnant by a human male. Do you understand how that sounds? The medical community has documented exactly 3 cases of Zelathi human hybrid births in recorded history, all from Zelathi males and human females, and all requiring significant medical intervention. I know the statistics, Mother. I've lived with the diagnosis long enough." Lyra's hand remained on her stomach, protective and fierce. But it happened, naturally. No intervention, no genetic manipulation, no illegal procedures, just 2 people who fell in love and didn't think the impossible could happen. "Love," Serafina said the word like a curse. "Love doesn't change biology, Lyra. Love doesn't rewrite genetic code or overcome fundamental incompatibilities between species. And yet here I am." Lyra stood, moving with surprising grace despite her condition. 5.5 months pregnant with a healthy child. My child, our child. Serafina's mind spun through scenarios, calculations, damage control strategies. "We need to see specialists immediately. Genetic counselors, medical ethicists, legal advisors. We need to understand what's happening, ensure the pregnancy is viable, prepare for any complications." "I've been seeing doctors, Mother. Human and Zelathi specialists who have been monitoring everything carefully. The baby is healthy. Developing normally, all the scans show. You've been hiding this for months." The betrayal cut deeper than Serafina wanted to admit. "Lying to me, to the family. Did you think I wouldn't find out? Did you plan to simply show up at some family gathering with an infant and expect everyone to accept it?" "I planned to tell you when I was ready." Lyra's composure finally cracked, tears streaming down her purple cheeks. "When I had the courage to face your disappointment, your calculations about damage control, your immediate jump to how this affects the family legacy instead of how it affects me." "Everything affects the legacy," Serafina shouted back. "Do you think I built what we have by ignoring consequences? By pretending that individual choices don't have rippling effects? I gave you everything: education, opportunity, freedom that my generation never had, and you repay me with secrets and scandal." "I repay you by living my life?" Lyra's voice broke. "By finding happiness despite the diagnosis that made me feel broken for years. Despite knowing I disappointed you by not being able to provide the genetic heirs you wanted. Despite watching you arrange marriage prospects with suitable families while pretending it was about my happiness rather than advantageous alliances." The accusation struck home because it was true. Serafina had spent years cultivating potential matches for Lyra, respectable Zelathi families with solid portfolios and genetic profiles. After the infertility diagnosis, she'd pivoted to men who already had heirs, whose families might overlook Lyra's condition in exchange for the Veltaris connections and wealth. She'd never asked Lyra what she wanted. Serafina sank into a chair, suddenly feeling every one of her 143 years. "Tell me about him. This David Chen." Lyra blinked, clearly not expecting the shift. He's a terraforming engineer, works for the Coalition Environmental Restoration Corps. We met 2 years ago when his team was consulting on the atmospheric stabilization project for Veltara Minor. A terraforming engineer. Serafina processed this. Not wealthy then, not connected to the right families or circles, but educated, skilled, respectable work. His background? Earth-born, Mars-educated. His parents immigrated from old China on Earth. They run a small agricultural business in the Martian colonial belt. Lyra's voice softened as she spoke about him. He's brilliant mother, passionate about ecological restoration, about making damaged worlds livable again. He's kind, thoughtful, and he loves me, not for my family name or my connections, just me. Does he know about your diagnosis? I told him on our third date. A small smile crossed Lyra's face. I thought it was important to be honest, given that most Zelathi relationships are at least partially evaluated on reproductive potential. I expected him to walk away. Instead, he said he wasn't dating me for potential children. He was dating me because I made him laugh and challenged his assumptions about atmospheric conversion models. Despite everything, despite the panic and anger and fear, Serafina felt something shift in her chest. She remembered that feeling, being valued for herself rather than her utility. It had been a long time. When did you realize you were pregnant? 3 months in, I started feeling ill, thought it was stress from hiding the relationship from you. Lyra's expression turned wry. Turns out it was morning sickness. The first doctor I saw was human. I was too scared to go to a Zelathi physician who might recognize me. He ran the tests twice because he couldn't believe the results. Then I saw a Zelathi specialist who done research on interspecies reproduction. She was the one who confirmed that somehow, impossibly, my body had adapted. Adapted, Serafina repeated. That's not how biology works, except when it does. Lyra pulled out a data tablet, calling up medical scans. Dr. Reishin has a theory. She thinks the original diagnosis was accurate for Zelathi conception. My genetic markers do make it nearly impossible for me to conceive with another Zelathi. But human genetic structures are different enough that somehow the incompatibility markers didn't trigger. It's like trying to fit a key into the wrong lock and finding out that a completely different key works instead. Serafina studied the scans, seeing the unmistakable evidence of a developing child, healthy, growing, existing against all odds and predictions. The social implications, she said slowly, are going to be significant. I know. The family will have questions, extended relatives, business partners, social circles. There will be gossip, speculation, judgment. I know. Some will say you underwent illegal procedures. Others will accuse you of fraud regarding your diagnosis. A few might even suggest the child isn't yours, that you're using a surrogate and claiming otherwise. I know, Lyra's voice rose. I've thought about all of this, Mother. Every night for 5 months, I've laid awake running through scenarios and consequences and worst-case outcomes. But I'm not going to apologize for my child's existence. I'm not going to hide or pretend or feel ashamed because the universe decided to surprise us all. Serafina stood, moving to stand before her daughter, really looking at her for perhaps the first time in years. Lyra had her father's determined jawline, her grandmother's expressive eyes. She'd grown into a formidable woman, independent, principled, brave enough to defy expectations and social pressure for something she believed in. Everything Serafina had tried to raise her to be, really. Just not in the direction Serafina had planned. Does he want to marry you? Serafina asked quietly. He's asked 3 times. I keep saying not yet, not until I tell you, not until I figure out how to navigate this without losing my family entirely. Tears spilled down Lyra's cheeks again. He deserves better than having his proposal acceptance contingent on my mother's approval, but I didn't want to choose between him and you if I didn't have to. Something cracked in Serafina's carefully maintained emotional walls. She reached out, pulling Lyra into an embrace for the first time in years. Her daughter was taller now, stronger, and unmistakably pregnant against her. "You stupid, brave girl," Serafina whispered. "Of course you should marry him if you love him. Of course you should be happy." Lyra sobbed against her shoulder, the tension of months finally releasing. "You're not furious." "Oh, I'm absolutely furious. You hid this from me for months, made decisions that will have lasting implications without consulting me, and completely upended any plans I had for gracefully managing family succession issues." Serafina pulled back, looking her daughter in the eyes. "But I'm also proud of you for choosing your own path. I'm terrified for you because the road ahead won't be easy, and somewhat in awe that my infertile daughter managed to achieve something the medical establishment said was impossible." "Does this mean you want to meet him?" Serafina took a deep breath. "I suppose I should evaluate whether this human engineer is worthy of my daughter and grandchild. When can you arrange a dinner?" "Tonight. He's been staying close in case this conversation went badly and I needed support. He's here, in the building." Serafina raised an eyebrow. "2 floors down. I told him to wait there until I signaled it was safe to come up." Lyra pulled out her comm device. "I can call him now if you're ready." Serafina looked around the apartment, shattered crystal on the floor, afternoon light painting everything in warm tones, her pregnant daughter watching her with hope and fear in equal measure. This wasn't how she'd planned today. It wasn't how she'd planned any of this. But then, the universe rarely cared for her plans. "Call him," Serafina said, "and get me something to drink, something strong. If I'm going to meet my future human son-in-law and discuss the fact that my supposedly infertile daughter is carrying an impossible hybrid grandchild, I need fortification." Lyra's laugh was watery but genuine. "I love you, Mother. I love you too, you impossible child." Serafina bent to pick up the shattered crystal pieces, handling them carefully. "Though next time you decide to rewrite biological science and social convention, perhaps give me more than 5 months' notice. I'll try to time my next miracle more conveniently." As Lyra called David, inviting him up, Serafina moved back to the window. Somewhere out there, across 3-star systems and 7 planets, people were living their lives according to the rules and expectations she'd spent decades navigating. Building legacies, maintaining appearances, playing by established guidelines. And here in this modest apartment, her daughter had found something that transcended all of that. Love, possibility, and proof that sometimes the impossible was simply the improbable waiting for its moment. Serafina heard the door chime, heard Lyra's voice brighten as she welcomed someone in, heard a male voice, nervous but warm, asking if everything was all right. She turned from the window, straightening her shoulders and smoothing her expression into the composed mask she'd perfected over decades. Time to meet the human who'd accomplished what no Zelathi could, winning her daughter's heart and somehow, miraculously, giving her the family she'd been told she could never have. Lady Serafina Veltaris had built an empire through careful calculation and strategic planning. But perhaps, she thought as she watched her glowing daughter lead a nervous young human man toward her. The best legacies were the ones that surprised you. David Chen was shorter than she'd expected, with warm brown skin, kind eyes, and an engineer's practical bearing. He held himself with quiet confidence despite the obvious anxiety radiating from him. When he met her gaze, he didn't look away. "Lady Veltaris," he said respectfully, "thank you for agreeing to meet me. I know this situation is unexpected." "That's certainly one word for it." Serafina studied him, noting the way his hand instinctively reached for Lyra's, the protective angle of his body toward her daughter. "Lyra tells me you're a terraforming engineer." "Yes, ma'am. I specialize in atmospheric restoration for damaged colony worlds. And you're aware of the complications involved in a Zelathi-human relationship, the social challenges, legal ambiguities, potential medical concerns. I've done extensive research. I understand we're breaking new ground in several areas." His jaw tightened slightly. "But I love your daughter. I want to build a life with her and our child, whatever challenges that involves." "Pretty words, can you back them with action?" "Mother," Lyra warned. "No, it's all right." David squeezed Lyra's hand, then stepped forward. "Lady Veltaris, I don't have your wealth or connections. I can't offer Lyra the lifestyle she grew up with or the social position her name carries. What I can offer is devotion, partnership, and a commitment to face whatever comes together. I know that doesn't sound like much compared to what you've built." "It sounds like everything," Serafina interrupted softly. "It sounds like what actually matters." David blinked, clearly thrown by the response. Serafina allowed herself a small smile. "Come, both of you, sit. We have a great deal to discuss, starting with wedding arrangements, medical planning, and how we're going to manage the inevitable social reaction. If my daughter is going to rewrite biological science and social convention, we're going to do it properly." As they settled into conversation, Serafina felt her panic transforming into something else. Not quite acceptance yet, but perhaps the beginning of it. Her carefully planned future had shattered like that crystal decanter. But maybe, like those broken pieces, something new and beautiful could be built from the fragments. Her daughter was pregnant, impossibly, miraculously pregnant. And Serafina was going to be a grandmother to a child that shouldn't exist according to everything medicine and society understood. It was terrifying. It was scandalous. It would complicate everything she'd built. It was also, Serafina realized as she watched Lyra and David's hands intertwined on her daughter's rounded belly, perhaps the most important legacy she'd ever be part of. Not one she'd planned or controlled, but one she could choose to embrace.